Hey guys, welcome back to Chapter in Ash. I am Ash, you are here, and I am pumped because today we're going to count down my picks for top 10 historical fiction novels of all time out of novels that I've actually read. So if I miss out on one of your favorites, be sure to let me know about it in the comments below. I do read the comments here on this channel. And as I've said before, all of these books are not going to be for everybody out there, right? Like, I love historical fiction. It's my jam, but I do tend to gravitate towards novels. They're a little bit on the grittier side. I've mentioned this before, but it's kind of, I guess, a loose trigger warning for you guys out there. I like when they kill off protagonists in books, right? I like when they take chances and take risks. I like a little bit of grit in my novels. I like romance, but I also like I like explicit sex scenes, right? I wanna be in the moment when I read these books, so they're not going to be for everybody out there, but I will make sure to notate that as we go book by book on this list. So without further ado, let's kick things off with number 10. Number 10, and I struggled putting this one at number 10, is going to be The Paris Wife. This is by Paula McLean, and it was written in 2010. This is a high recommendation. This is told through the eyes of Hadley Richardson, who was the first wife of Ernest Hemingway, right? So it portrays their love, their courtship, and the infidelity, the alcoholism. There's so much here, and I've always been really intrigued by the life of Ernest Hemingway. I watched a documentary on him years ago on PBS documentaries, and I read this book after that. I kind of Googled like books about his life, and this was really, really cool, right? At one point, Hadley misplaces Ernest Hemingway's entire manuscript collection, like losing all of his work, a super real tragedy that did happen in real life as well. So this entire book is from true events written by Hemingway in his A Movable Feast, which is his basically autobiography. I really dug this one. It's really interesting to see the other love affairs kind of enter into Hemingway's life and how Richardson deals with them. She kind of has a mental decline throughout this entire novel as well, which I think mirrors real life and what that must have been like. It's cool to see the eyes, or to see the life of Ernest Hemingway, such an icon, through the lives of all the people around him who really had to carry some of his burdens. So A Paris Wife comes in at number 10. Coming in at number 9 is Perfume, The Story of a Murder by Patrick Susskind. This was written in 1985. This takes place in 18th century Paris. It stars the protagonist, who is Jean-Baptiste, and basically he is kind of orphaned from a young age. His mom is executed, and it takes place in Paris, and it's just absolutely wild. It's very, very, very dark, but a very interesting story. First of all, it's a great look into Paris inside the 18th century, and it's about this dude who has this like really insane knack for smell, right? This guy who's never learned how to love, never really had a true romance, never understood what true like chemistry with another individual is like. Instead, he develops his sense of smell, and he becomes obsessed with the scent of women, right? So he'll be walking through a crowd or something, he'll smell somebody and become infatuated with them, right? And then it leads to, well, murder, and a lot more than that. There's necrophilia in this book as well, so a little bit of a trigger warning here, but I do think that overall it's incredibly well written, and if anything about either the era or the location intrigues you, I'd highly recommend this one. It's almost a psychological horror entry with some necrophilia and some murder, right, into historical fiction genre. So it definitely stands alone in that regard. Coming in at number 9 is Perfume, The Story of a Murderer. Coming in at number 8 is The Bronze Horseman by Paulina Simons, written in 2000, the first entry into what I believe is a trilogy. I've only read the first novel here, though, so I can only recommend that, but I imagine they're all absolutely fantastic. This certainly was. So this takes place during the 900-day siege of Leningrad, okay? And Tatiana falls in love with a soldier, Alexander. Alexander is the boyfriend of Tatiana's sister. So there's this like crazy forbidden romance brewing and then culminating in this novel. At the same time, they're in Leningrad, right? So it's harrowing. There's all sorts of stuff. There's sexual scenes. There's children's dying here. There's starvation. One of the most memorable scenes is Tatiana, the protagonist, basically taking or scavenging dead bodies in children for food, for bread. And this romance is kind of layered on top of this immense tragedy. And it really makes for a just a really emotional read, honestly. This was based on real siege diaries, by the way, smuggled by survivors in Leningrad. So it's historically, it has some, some truisms there as well. I really think this is one of the more popular entries on the list too. I haven't ran into many people who have disliked this novel, so that's a Bronze Horseman coming in at number 8. Coming in at number 7 is The Crimson Petal and the White. This is by Mitchell Faber, and it was written in 2002. It takes place in Victorian London in the 1870s. The source material for this book was actually brothel ledgers and diaries, and the protagonist is, go figure, a prostitute. She starts out on the lowest rung, obviously, of class and society at the time, and then she kind of works her way up. She ingratiates herself with a very wealthy, rich man, and then she thinks that, hey, okay, I've made it, right? And I can start, living a great life now, only to find how entrapped she still is by her sexuality and the lust of men, especially during that time period, right? She also, one of the most memorable moments is she writes this anti-man secret novel inside the actual book. So it's really interesting. It's interesting to see how she thinks she's really making headway, and then time and time again, she's trapped not by her station in life necessarily as she starts to elevate herself, but by the same tropes of men and women and the balance, like I said, between, I guess, sexuality and lust and power and class in that time period in London. So The Crimson Petal and the White comes in at number 7. Coming in at number 6 is The Potato Factory by Bryce Courtney, written in 1995. I really enjoyed this one, but honestly, it's been about 15, 20 years since I've read it personally, but doesn't take away from it being on this list because I really enjoyed it. It follows a thief, Icky Solomon, who's a real life protagonist in this book as well. It actually inspired Oliver Twist, right? The villain Oliver Twist as well. So really strong lead character. But Hannah, his lover, really for me takes the cake as the most intriguing character inside this novel. I believe it's a trilogy as well, and I believe I've read them all. Oh God, never get old. But anyway, there is some prostitution. It's all about basically this slum or these criminals enterprise in the slums of London who end up going to kind of colonial Australia and building this kind of criminal empire there as well, all around kind of a brothel, the Potato Factory. So don't let the name throw you off. It's definitely dark, but it's also a sweeping kind of an epic novel. And like I said, it's a trilogy. So if you like the first one, keep on with it. I really enjoyed this one. That's The Potato Factory coming in at number 6. Coming in at number 5 is Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. This was written in 1991, popular TV series as well. I really enjoyed this one. I have not seen the TV show either. So if you loved it, let me know about it in the comments below. This one surprised me. I really enjoyed it. It follows a nurse, Claire Randall, in World War II, okay? And she finds this kind of a time warp thing. Don't worry, that's the only sci-fi element of the book. But she's transported into 18th century Scotland, right? Now, she's married in real life, and then she starts to fall in love with this guy and really get enveloped in kind of Scottish history, right? Like it's really interesting, both from a historical vantage point, but also the idea of the infidelity between, her husband in the modern era, but not knowing if she'll ever see him again and falling in love with another man, right? It really asks big questions about devotion and faith and violence, and it's really good. They have some, again, trigger warning here. There's obviously a lot of sex scenes here, torture, there's child trauma in this book as well, but I really enjoyed it. I highly recommend it. I think it's so popular for a reason. That's Outlander at number 5. Coming in at number 4 is 11/22/63 by Stephen King. A little bit different than the earlier entries today on our list. This one, again, kind of surprised me. I've had Stephen King featured in a few of my different lists here on the channel, and I'm not like a huge Stephen King fan. I'm not a huge hater either, but this one is much different, I think, than the rest of his novels, and it was, I think, one of his top sellers in terms of how long it was on the bestseller list. I think like months and months and months, which speaks a lot about this kind of a little bit of a pivot in his typical writing style. I really enjoyed it. It follows a Maine school teacher who basically goes into a deli, meets this guy, the deli owner, who finds this time warp thing that sends him back to 1958, right? So just like anything else time warpy, You might think, again, kind of like Outlander, is this like some sci-fi book? It's really not. It's really a character development. It asks all these big questions on, okay, if you would go back in time, what would you do?
From out of town, am I right?
You shouldn't be here.
All the classic like time travel tropes, but handled in a very matter-of-fact way that doesn't feel like all like suspend all of your belief here or disbelief here. I really like it. And obviously he goes and ultimately decides to prevent JFK's assassination. But changing history has these devastating costs for all parties involved. Even the deli owner, like you find out this in the very beginning of the novel, like as a penalty for going back in time all the time, he ends up developing cancer, right? So it really does have a lot of violence, a very interesting story, some sexual scenes as well, but a little bit tamer than some of the other ones on the list. I just thought it was a really, really enjoyable read at the end of the day, and it does a really good job of handling time travel in a way that's easily digestible and having the story take the lead, not this sci-fi or anything like that. Even the JFK assassination, you'll enjoy this book even if you don't care about, all the specifics about the JFK assassination. That's 11/22/63 coming in at number 4. Coming in at number 4 is The Fall of Giants by Ken Follett, written in 2010. This is also part of a trilogy. There might even be a 4th book coming for this one. It takes place in World War I, or it starts in World War I at least, and it follows 5 interconnected families. It's one of those books that takes you on different, protagonists, different point of views, and they start crossing paths as well. This one was not like super violent or anything like that compared to the other books on the list, and this one was very, very long, but I really enjoyed it. It's fairly easy read, like one that you can pick up before bed, just read a few chapters, or whatever your situation is. It's a book that you can easily pick up, read a chapter, and then slow roll it with this one. Even though it's a long book, I found it an easy but long, difficult in length, right? So this follows obviously World War I, right? And it follows all these families, and because they're British and American and Russian and German and Welsh, well, they're all going through what those individuals were in each of those countries during this time period. So you get all these perspectives, and then like I said, Follett does a masterful job of kind of interweaving their stories in their lives in a really interesting way. So I loved Fall of Giants. It's a long read, it's a big commitment, but I really do feel like it pays off in a big, big way. Coming in at number 2 is The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna, written in 2015. This is a really freaking good book, guys. It's a really good book. I was surprised at this one. It follows 2 French sisters in Nazi-occupied France during World War II. One is kind of like, it has like these 2 different personalities on these 2 sisters. One's all about protecting the family, the kids. The other one is all about joining the resistance and fighting back, right? And it follows both of their stories. And let me tell you, they're both very, very tragic, very tragic. A lot of beautiful writing here by Kristen Hanna, but also some really difficult stories on both of these. But it really drives home the plight of the women, which is not always talked about during these major wars, throughout the history of the world. Specifically in this one, in France, occupied by Nazi Germany in World War II. So I feel like this does a really interesting job, in terms of like not all of the Germans are evil. Most of them are, but not all are. And to me, this novel is about choices that the sisters have to make along the way. Very, very difficult choices. Sometimes there is no right choice, and sometimes the unorthodox approach ends in disaster. I really like this one. It was recommended by my aunt. My fiance absolutely loved it, so The Nightingale comes in at number 2. Coming in at number 1 is another Ken Follett entry, because I am a sucker for some Ken Follett, and that is The Pillars of the Earth. This is one of my top 10 books of all time, also part of a trilogy, and there might be ongoing entries as well. This one really was one of my, at the time, one of my favorite reads, and I subsequently actually listened to the audiobook as well because I couldn't get enough of this novel. I loved it. It starts out in the 12th century England, okay? But throughout all of the additional installments, and this is one of those books too that goes through multiple generations of characters in one novel, so you usually get like, the father, the kids and the grandkids kind of growing up throughout one novel. So I think at the end of the third novel, I don't want to ruin anything here, but you get to like closer to modern day, in events that happened in real life. Obviously, they start to kind of spurt out in some real life characters and royalty and stuff like that. You're like, wow, we're already here, because it kind of tracks with real life, what was going on again through the trilogy and beyond. Either way, though, it starts 12th century England, all about, Pillars of the Earth is about a cathedral, right? Now, listen, I'm not a huge cathedral fan. I mean, I can respect a good architecture of a cathedral, and I love visiting them, so I'm not not a fan either, but I never thought I'd read this 1,500 page or longer, this massive epic novel about cathedrals. But it's not about cathedrals. It's about all the characters. And what I love about Follett is, these are real historical events that kind of interweave in and out of this novel, but he does such a good job writing about the characters. What you get a sense of what it was like to live in 12th century England if you're just a random builder looking for work, right? Or if you're a woman who lost her husband, right? A widow, like what would that be like? If you're a member of royalty, right? Or if you're a hungry member of royalty, but you're on kind of the lower stature. If you're a monk in a monastery, So such a good job developing these characters in, just like a lot of his novels, not everything as is as it seems, right? Like they have flawed protagonists, and I think that mirrors real life, right? Where everybody that we meet, we're not all one thing. No one's, or very rarely is somebody all bad or all good, and that's how all the characters, to me, in Ken Follett's novels read. So I just love this one. I think it's it starts out a little bit slow, a little bit of a slow burn, but it's just character development. It does have a lot of religious kind of thematic overtones, but not in a religious kind of way, almost in a satirical way, or I don't know, maybe that's a little bit too strong of a description. But either way, there are some tough scenes, rape, torture, but overall, it's a fairly easy read. It's character driven with still a solid plot, and I just think he does a beautiful job of really engrossing what that time period was like, how harsh life was like during 12th century England as well. There it is, guys. Those are my picks for the top 10 historical fiction novels of all time. Let me know what you agree with or what you disagree with down below. And if you have any recommendations for me, I would absolutely love those as well. Thanks for making it all the way until the end of the video. Much love. And as always, take care, guys.